Thanks for staying with us tonight. You're live on News at Prime. President Cyril Ramaphosa has expressed his sadness at the passing of 86-year-old author, poet and activist Don Mattera. Friends and family are paying their respects and saying their final goodbye tonight at Mattera's Soweto home. He's being laid to rest at Johannesburg's West Park Cemetery. Our reporter Ahmed Kajee live for us in Protea Glen tonight. Ahmed, good evening, and let's talk about, the proceedings that we've watched tonight. It's all had to be planned very quickly, had to take place very quickly.
Yes, very much so, Kathy, and this is in light with the Islamic faith and Muslim rituals, which means that the burials normally need to take place as soon as possible when it comes through to logistics as well. And speaking to those specific rights, the justification around that from an Islamic perspective is to get a person back to their Creator, back to God as soon as possible. And that's the reason we see burials from the Muslim faith normally would see that taking place as soon as possible. We had seen that yesterday with the late ANC Acting Secretary General Jesse Duarte as well. But in terms of what we can expect this evening at 7:30, the body of Don Mattera will be then lifted from the body over here, then taken through to the West Park Cemetery, just where quite a few ANC struggle stalwarts are buried and where we had seen a majority of activities taking place yesterday. But in terms of what we have seen over the last 5 to 10 minutes or so, Arts and Culture Minister Natim Tetwa arrived just a few moments ago. He's inside right now speaking to the family, and on the way in he had a brief chat with a few of the journalists outside, and a big part of what he reflected upon was the fact that Don Mattera was a big fan of showing the youth direction and being a mentor to many of the young people, saying that even though it was last month was Youth Month, it was important for him to ensure that his poetry and his literature continued to shine through in the young people of South Africa as well. And as I mentioned, mentorship as a part of what he has done, I'll now bring in to the conversation Bishop Clive Ramberland. Sorry, pardon me for that, Bishop. Can you maybe just take us through your reflections on Don Mattera's life?
Thank you. Indeed, a privilege to do so, and easy to do so, because there's nothing to, invent about Don Mattera. We call him affectionately Don because that's how we knew him. I am one of many thousands of young people that he had mentored at some stage of our lives and throughout. Don was, for us, an institution. He was able to fly with the highest birds, and he was able to crawl with the lowest of the ends, so to speak. And when we stand here today, it's to commemorate the life of someone who was selfless, completely selfless. I speak on behalf of many Christian pastors that he also raised. So he was able to straddle beyond faith, even though he was a practicing Muslim. I remember many interactions with him that we would have, whether it was philosophy, whether it was religion, whether it was basic politics. And he was, for all of us, a sincere and genuine selfless activist. One more thing about Don's selflessness, for me, is best explained when at one point in time he was issued, somebody invited him and gave him a check. I think it was in the Eastern Cape. And without even looking at the amount, he gave that check away. He was an absolute selfless person and able to listen to us as young people. And we have always revered and respected him for who he is. And today when we stand here, our hearts are sad, but we must thank God that he had lived full and that we were able to constantly interact with him in that regard. So for us, we have lost an institution. And it is my sincere prayer and hope. For us, even he had taught poetry. I remember one incident, for example, when I published my work, Gekraakte Blare, where Don and I had this discussion about whether I can publish in Afrikaans, Afrikaans, and English in one booklet. And I told him, Don, I'm going to do that. He was there at the launch when we launched the book. So Don was an inspiration in many ways because of who he is. We are saddened today, but we are thankful for the Mattera family for having shared him with us for these many years. And even during the time of his frailty, he didn't stop answering the calls that we would make to his number. Thank you, Uncle Don. we will certainly miss you. We as your mentees will miss you in a special and divine way. We have lost big today, so, a day after we've lost another giant in the form of the former DSG of the ANC, Jesse Duarte. So indeed, and also because today is Nelson Mandela Day, so it's significant, and we should reflect on what this means in regard to where we're going as a nation. We've got to keep our leadership accountable. Don did not shy away from the fact that we cannot let the masses remain behind while we are concerned about our egos as politicians. He placed upon us the burden to work for leadership that is productive, that is sensitive to the masses, and selfless. We've got to stop the blue light crowd.
Perfect. Bishop, thanks very much for your time, and this allows me an opportunity to bring into the conversation Advocate Smanga Sitene. Advocate, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for your time. As we said, Don was a big part of the political structures, a big part of the social structures of the country. How would you say, or what would you take from his life?
Look, first of all, let's make it clear. Don was a member of PAC, and he was also baptized in the waters of black consciousness. I heard some news clips saying Don was a member of the ANC. Don was never ever a member of the ANC throughout his life, throughout his struggle days. So the history must not be edited. The history must not be blemished. Because he fought fearlessly against apartheid through his poetry. He was incarcerated, put on solitary confinement many a times, and you will note that in one of his poems, Beloved, which he dedicates to Mamu Judith, he talks about how he was brutally assaulted by the apartheid establishment, and also Judith was brutally assaulted. So he's been a struggle icon throughout his life, and I think the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, and as well as Azapo, they've lost a great icon.
From a South African youth perspective as well, what should they be taking from the life of him?
Don was a lover of books, lover of literature, and he encouraged all of us to ensure that we do study and we impart the knowledge that we acquire. So he was someone that each time you are with him, he won't run out of stories that he would share with you. Brilliant stories, and he was also a teacher of creative writing. Many students who were taught by him from Fubu, they would know that if you wanted one of the best creative writing teacher, Don he was.
Advocate, thanks very much for your time today, and condolences once again to your Bishop as well. That's Advocate Smanga Sitene joining us here, just taking us through his reflections of the life of Don Mattera, who passed away earlier this afternoon, Kathy. And just to take you through what you will expect, it is about 20 minutes or so, and then the body of Don Mattera will be lifted from his home over here and then taken through to the West Park Cemetery, where his final burial prayers will be taken place, and then he will be buried as per the Islamic rites, as mentioned earlier. Back to you, Kathy.
Ahmed, I'm looking behind you, and we're seeing quite a number of people that look like members of the community that have come out to, pay their final respects to Ndate Mattera. Very much speaks to the man he was, grounded in community. Earlier you spoke to one of the members of his foundation, Jenny Jafter, who of course we know, when we look at the work that foundation is doing, it was launched in an area, Eldorado Park. It's where he stayed. It's where he gave back to the community as well.
So, Kathy, I think we have quite a bad line, and it is breaking up in quite significantly and severely. But to just step out of shot slightly and just take you through exactly what is taking place. Many of the family members are currently inside, carrying out their final prayers, more or less will be paying their final respects, saying their final goodbyes as well. And Kathy, to just maybe bring into context as well, the lighting at the moment is very low, and the unfortunate bit of that is that the area is going through load shedding at this particular moment. So temporary lighting is being used inside the house, and the only other lighting in and around the area is coming through from the various other media crews in and across the area as well. But Kathy, in terms of the mood around here, it is very somber. People are still just trying to come to terms with the passing of Don Mattera, but at the same time remembering all the good that he had done for the local communities, and in some way or form trying to celebrate his life in the dark hours and the dark times which we happen to find ourselves in today. Kathy.
All right, thanks for that, Ahmed Kajee. More from Ahmed throughout the evening. As you heard, they'll conclude then the service that they're holding at the family, and then he will be laid to rest at one of the local cemeteries.